What's up, y'all? This is Hammer here again, back with another video. And today I'm going to be talking about how Asians are starting to pay for affirmative action being struck down. Now, many of you guys who probably are not familiar with my channel may not understand why I'm saying this and why I titled this video the way I did. But for those who have been with me, when Asians essentially went and sued to kind of have affirmative action be knocked down, right? And it was making its way to the Supreme Court. I made a video talking about how Asian Americans are making a grave mistake and that they're going to pay for this long term. And the reason I said, look, what Asian Americans don't understand, right, is that white people have been very successful in using them as a buffer class against other minority groups. And what that essentially means is that whenever you have, minority groups like Black Americans, Latinos, specifically Black Americans, who will talk about how the system is stacked against them, white Americans will go out of their way and pull up an Asian and say, well, if the system is so rigged, then how do you explain all these Asians succeeding, right? And what I was trying to let the Asians know was that, first of all, when they do this, they're not doing this to help you, right? When white people essentially, open up the system or open doors for Asians or, allow you guys to kind of climb the ladder, support you guys in certain ways, like, they're not doing this to help you. They're doing this simply so you can be a buffer class to rebuff any accusations of racism from the other minority groups. All right. So you're not there to actually replace this. You're not there to take their place. You're not there to actually challenge them, right? You're not there to be at the top. You're simply there to be a buffer class so they can use against other minority groups who are there to fight against this sort of white power structure. And I said, the moment in which y'all really try to go after the white power structure or try to have the position that white people do, they'll smack you down like a bunch of flies, okay? And what I was trying to tell them, look, is it true that affirmative action was used in many ways against Asian Americans? I will say there's some truth to that, right? But here's what you need to understand. They didn't do this because they were trying to help, Black students or Latinos. Because once again, even though Asian Americans, and I do agree that Asian Americans, they face more struggle going to Ivy schools, Asian Americans still overrepresented in these Ivy League schools. They're actually more of them than even Black and Hispanics. They're actually punching above the weight. But what I was trying to tell the Asian, look, what is happening, right, is that the reason why the white Americans and the white power structure is putting all these limiters on you is because you guys are the only group in the country that is gaining up too much when it comes to white students. What do I mean, right? When it comes to these Ivy League schools, they don't have to really worry about Black students or Hispanic students or even Native American students, out competing or just taking over the place, because these people come from impoverished areas, and they've had a history of being marginalized. But Asian Americans, because you guys have shown time and time again you can outcompete them academically, there has been a fear from a lot of white people that you guys, that if they don't put in place limiters or if they don't, bend the rules to benefit the white kids, you will just overrun them. You just take over universities. And so, yes, I do agree with you that in many of these Ivy League schools, they probably did discriminate against Asian Americans, right? But what the Asians need to understand that this was not done to help Black or Hispanics. This was done to help the white students, right? It was done to ensure that they maintain, the privileged position. It was done to ensure you guys don't take over those universities, right? And one thing, I said, look, when you look at how the white conservatives, right, funded this whole Asian American student against affirmative action, I said, isn't it interesting how white conservatives never talk about legacy admissions? I said, Asians didn't answer the question. When you look at most of these Ivy League schools, right, a large percentage of the seats go to legacy students, right, which are predominantly white kids. But notice how The white conservatives, the white power structure, they don't really complain about the quote-unquote legacy admissions, but they love complaining about affirmative action, even though it's a very small percentage of actual, seats that are reserved for when it comes to affirmative action. When the vast, I will say a large percentage, not a majority of seats in Ivy League schools go to legacy students, or people, or I guess kids who have connections, essentially, which are predominantly white. And I said, those are where the seats are going. But notice how they're not funding any sort of lawsuits against legacy admissions, but they're funding lawsuits against affirmative action. You're being used. And I said, look, what's going to happen is this, Asian. I said this in the previous event. I said, what's going to happen is this. Once they are done using you guys to knock down affirmative action, they will throw you to the side and they will just say, yeah, we don't want you here. What I mean by that is, the reason why they were putting all of these limitations or making it harder for Asians to go to the Ivy League school, because you guys, there was a fear that you guys would outcompete the white students. So they had to put limits in place or try to restrict, how much will go through to ensure that the white kids and the white students will maintain their privileged position, right? Now, they hid behind affirmative action and DEI, all these other things, but that was not the real reason. They just didn't want you in these schools. They saw you as too much of an academic threat. And I said, once they essentially use you to tell affirmative action, they won't have to hide anymore. They'll just come out and just say, yeah, we don't want you over here. Yeah, we're going to prioritize the legacy of that. They'll just tell you what it is. And I said, and the crazy part is that when that happens, you'll have no recourse, because the only recourse you did have, which was, the affirmative action, the race admissions, will be gone. So you literally have no recourse left. Because here's what Asians need to understand, right? There is no such thing as being colorblind. If I send an application somewhere, right? If somebody looks at my name, they can probably tell that I'm a black person, specifically a black immigrant, right? They don't ever have to say, hey, I didn't pick you because you're a black immigrant. They can just say, well, because of your credits, it was because of, this or that, right? Something, whatever, right? And I have no way of actually proving that it was because of my race. And that's what Asian Americans are like. They don't have to tell you this. All they have to do is look at your name, look at your background, and say no, right? And the crazy part is that even if they are saying it because of your race, they'll never say that. They'll say something else, and you'll have no recourse, right? That's another reason why affirmative action was good, because there was an understanding of, hey, you do have those hidden biases, right? But now that's gone. So what's going to happen is this. They're still going to predominantly prioritize, white legacy students. They're still going to, quote unquote, discriminate based on those Asian last names. But this time, they'll just be able to say it's about something else, right? And this time, you won't be able to use race, right? Against it. You won't be able to bring issue of race anymore. You've completely removed that defense now. But the crazy part is, this won't stop them from, quote unquote, I'm judging you differently because of your Asian name when it comes to applications. This won't stop from prioritizing white students, but this will stop you from being able to bring laws against them, or stop you from being able to bring up or point out the racial discrimination. Because they'll just say, hey, affirmative action is gone. We don't use race. We don't look at race. So what are you talking about? The reason why I'm saying is because this is what I warned Asians was going to happen, right? Now, what has happened ever since is that you now have an article that recently came out talking about how post-affirmative action, Asian Americans are worried that it will be even harder for them to go into Ivy League schools, right? And then you have another study, another article talking about how when Asian Americans move into white neighborhoods, white people move out. So why am I bringing this up, right? Now you have a lot of Asian Americans, right, a lot of articles talking about how you may actually see a decrease of Asian Americans going to Ivy League schools. You may actually see less Asian Americans going to Ivy League schools, right? And of course, Asian Americans are panicking because they don't know what's going on. I said, look, let me break down to y'all what's going on, okay? They never want, these institutions were specifically really meant to benefit the white students, right? That's the reason why they never went after legacy admissions, right? And although affirmative action was done to kind of help Black Americans per se, keep this in mind that they weren't even the biggest beneficiaries. White women were the biggest beneficiaries. White women were the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. So even in that department, it wasn't even Black Americans that were benefiting the most. So what you need to understand is that it was never about merit. It was never about, oh, there's too many seats being given to these blacks, even though white females are the biggest recipients of affirmative action. No, it was about the fact that you as Asians are viewed as too much of an academic threat to the white students, so they just put more ceilings on you. That's all it is. All right? Now, when affirmative action was in place, they at least had to, quote unquote, put on the facade that, they at least had to put on the facade that they looked at every application equally. They took grades. They had to at least put on the facade of being anti-racist, right? Of, not judging based on race, right? That'll put on the facade. Now that affirmative action is gone, they don't even gotta do it anymore. They can just say no, right? Now, people are going to say, well, Hammer, we have the civil rights law. Here's what you guys need to understand, okay? If somebody decides to not pick your application based on race, unless they say it or unless you have proof, you have no way of actually proving that. That's what people don't understand. Like, if I am somebody working at Harvard and I see a bunch of applications, right, and all the applications with Asian, all the applications have Asian names, I say no, right? You have no way of actually really proving that it was because it was Asian. Especially, I can say, oh, well, especially if I hide behind another explanation. That was another reason why affirmative action was put in place, was the whole idea is that we know that there's going to be implicit biases, so that there has to be at least some seats reserved for certain underrepresented minorities. Because we already know that they're going to have a disadvantage. And we already know that, look, no amount of law is really going to compensate for, subconscious bias. That's what it was really for. Now that's gone. Right, the small amount of even though it was mostly going to white women, right? There were a lot of minorities that benefited, whether it was Asians or Hispanics and Asian Hispanics and blacks. I know Asians, but yeah, Asians were benefiting too. Now that small amount of help is gone. It's gone. So what's going to happen now with Asians? And what's happening is, right, they're still going to have to go out here and outperform, but at the end of the day, the white legacy students are going to prioritize. At the end of the day, implicit bias is going to work against them when it comes to the Asian names and the Asian background, right? And they will essentially have no real recourse like that, not any real serious recourse. And the crazy part is what you will probably start to see is even less and less Asian Americans going to these schools when they start to really prioritize and really put them limiters in place for them. So it's sad, right? And to make it even worse, when you look at that article about how white families move out when Asian families, I'm like, this proves the point, right? They view Asians as an academic threat. But see, this is the reason why this entire argument about merit was dumb. And this is what we were trying to tell fucking Asians, that, look, it was never about merit. It was never about merit. I said, look, the only reason why they use or pull yourself by your own bootstrap argument is because they already know that there's systems in place to keep Black Americans down. Right, but I said the moment in which Black Americans start to outcompete, they'll just change the rules. Like that's what we already know. That's what Black Americans already know. And we're trying to tell you, look, they're gaslighting you. They want these institutions to benefit their people. And I said the moment y'all start to really outcompete, they'll just move out of the neighborhood or just change the rules or just go out of the way to kind of prevent you or find ways to limit your population in universities. Now, at least with all these DEI programs or affirmative action programs, although it wasn't perfect, although white women benefit a lot, right? You at least got something, that was, in my opinion, earmarked for minority groups. Now that's gone. So you still got to go out here and outperform every single white person just to get a chance, right? And still have to deal with implicit bias at the end of the day. You fucked yourself. And to make it even worse, because you guys became the face and the proxy through which to knock out affirmative action, you have essentially alienated the rest of the other minority groups. And so now a lot of folks are looking at Asians sideways right now. So it's going to be real hard for y'all in the future to talk about anti-Asian hate, because folks are going to be saying, wait a minute, y'all were the ones that were saying race doesn't exist. Oh, race doesn't matter. Not all of a sudden race isn't real. Come on, stop. So we gotta be honest here. So the reason why I'm making this video, because I'm seeing so many Asians now all of a sudden talking about how, oh my God, Black Americans are right. Oh my God, it's not about America. In other words, Asian Americans are now starting to realize they got fucking played. And that essentially the whites used them as a proxy to not affirmative action, right? And they thought that, if we help them, then they'll reserve some. No. Once they finish using you, they threw you to the side and essentially just let. They threw you to the side, open the door for the white kid. That's what happened. And so now you got articles talking about how, post-affirmative action, we are scared that it will be even harder. Yeah, it's going to be harder. Yeah, it's going to be harder. Well, welcome to your wake-up call, okay? Welcome to your wake-up call. But with that being said, I will leave it there. But yeah, I told Asians, I said, look, you will pay for affirmative action, right? There will be a cost to this. So it is very much satisfying seeing how Asian Americans are finally starting to pay for. I said, look, what Asian Americans need to understand is this, okay? You cannot maintain power and promote meritocracy, merit at the same time, right? You cannot on one hand try to maintain power, but at the same time try to promote the idea of merit. They're contradictory. Because in order for you to maintain power for your group, you're gonna have to circumvent that. And I said, if push comes to shove, they will break the rules of merit. They will break all the rules to ensure they have power. Okay? You guys really believed that if affirmative action was knocked down, then all of a sudden it was going to be equal merit. No. It was not going to be equal merit. All they were going to do was say, hey, look, all of the programs that were there to help minorities will knock them down, but all the systems that are there to help our people, whether it's legacy admissions, we'll keep that in place. And you're out here in the cold looking like a fucking fool. But with that being said, I'll leave it at that. You guys, tell me in the chat what you guys think about this. Do you agree or disagree? But yeah, look, what I said is happening. Asians are finally paying for affirmative action. They're finally paying for essentially teaming up with, aligning themselves with whiteness, right? Thinking that they were going to get buffer class privileges. And in the end, they're the ones that they were made the biggest fool in the world. They were discarded like nothing. Ain't that a bitch? With that being said, y'all, make sure to tell me what you guys think in the chat, like, share, and subscribe. Hammer out.